So, here's the real question. How do dentists like you, who aren't willing to let insurance dictate how you will run your practice, who want to create incredibly profitable practices without sacrificing your time or sanity, how do you create the strategies to ensure your practice not only survives, but thrives in the 21st century? That's the blaring question, and Dr. Steve Schlintz is here to provide the answers. Welcome to Dental Practice Freedom Radio.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dr. Steve Schlintz, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Dental Practice Freedom Radio. And today, what we're going to talk about is the number one mistake that dentists make when they're doing a guided tour or comprehensive exam. You excited? This is something that is something I see routinely. I did it. Especially when I was starting, I did it all the time. And on the last episode, we talked about persistence and how to really start to structure your new patient process. And for me, there's really three main stages, and however you want to call them is up to you. But there's an interview. There is something where, in an ideal situation, I sit down with a patient, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, where we're just trying to figure out and get to know a little bit more about each other. So that's what I consider a preclinical interview or interview. Then there's the guided tour or exam phase. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And then the third step is a review. Now, you have to understand that sometimes these three specific stages happen at a new patient process. We might do more exams, we might do more reviews, there might be multiple reviews depending on how big the case is, but to get a patient established in my practice the way that I want them established in my practice, I have to do those three things: an interview, a guided tour, a review. And sometimes you can do that in one visit, sometimes you can do it in 3 visits, sometimes you can do it in 2 visits. The length, the complexity, how it's structured, it can always change just based on the patient needs, but it's always the same structure. Now, the reason I bring up the number one mistake that I see most dentists make in the comprehensive exam or the guided tour is that they truly do a comprehensive exam at this first visit. And now, if you have a patient specifically, like if I had a patient specifically come to me for TMJ issues and they're ready and they're committed and they want to move forward with the best that I have to offer, then sometimes we know we're going to start with a true comprehensive exam. We're going to do records, we're going to take models, we're going to take photos, we're going to do diagnostic movements of their jaw and opening, closing, deviations, all that stuff, right? But that's what most dentists do for every new patient. And what they say is, I get all the time that patients tell me that was the most comprehensive exam I ever had. And I used to get that too, and I used to think, hey, this is great, and patients love that. And then they didn't show up for the review, or they didn't engage further, or they left the office. And I was thinking to myself, why is that happening? And I came to the conclusion that when you're starting this, you have to put yourself in the patient's shoes. They just did a 30-minute interview. That's already so much longer than what they're typically used to spend with a dentist, and that's a great thing. I've never lost anybody because the interview was too long. I have lost people because the comprehensive exam was way too over the top. And so you have to put yourself in the patient's shoes and understand, okay, they've already spent 30 minutes with you. Now they're going to do a comprehensive exam. And if you start doing all these movements and photos and all this stuff, you can completely blow them out of the water. That by the time they get to the review, they know this is going to be not good. And you don't want patients to feel like it's not good before they go into the review. Now, you don't want patients to understand like, wow, I have some issues here that were brought to light that I never had before. But you want to do it in a way that like, okay, I understand that. I'm glad that I'm in this office. We're going to talk about these things further. So if you're with a routine patient, and some schools of technical training teach this, to do all of your records, all of your diagnostic stuff, because then at the review, you're completely prepared to give your complete diagnosis. I am telling you that does not work. That is a behaviorally unsound model. What I'm trying to do at this first guided tour is connect patients to level of disease at a very high level, and then to give them some action steps that they know they're actually in control of the lot of the disease. And so whether it's, plaque tracking, bleeding tracking, brushing habits, whatever that is, I want them to know, listen, I'm trying to equip you with all the knowledge so that you can keep your own teeth clean, healthy, with no issues, so that over the lifetime that you're here with me, you really don't have to do dentistry. Now, that's good for my practice because it's an older patient base, and I have found that the majority of my patients really still don't know how to brush and floss their teeth. After 40 years of seeing a dentist, they've never really been taught how to brush and floss their teeth. And I know that a 60-year-old patient that doesn't know how to brush and floss their teeth, when they hit 80, 90, they're going to have some serious issues. Those crowns, the 50-year-old amalgam fillings, they are going to break down, and this patient's going to have a very hard time keeping their teeth clean, and they're going to have a lot of complex dental issues. So that's my patient demographic. And, I work with, dentists that say, well, my patients are younger and they don't have any problems cleaning their teeth. They don't have decay. They don't have periodontal disease. I would make an argument that they probably still have periodontal disease. They may not have as much decay, but they're more likely to have bite problems and obstructive sleep apnea and other things that are often left undiagnosed. So the key is when you're going through this review or this guided tour, to get them involved in the process, but not blow them out of the water. Because when you get to the review, you just need enough information to have an honest discussion with them to see if they want to go further towards a more complete, comprehensive path. So for me, that is photos, a panoramic x-ray, and if they're younger and at higher risk of getting decay, we'll do bite wings. Okay. Now, could I do anterior PAs? Yes. Do I know some offices that do that? They want to get all their x-rays out of the way? Absolutely. Go ahead and do that. But what I don't want for the majority of my clients, when they're still trying to feel out this patient, is this patient going to move forward? And until I know that for sure, I don't want to take models of their teeth. I don't want to take impressions. I don't want to take this. I don't want to take that, because the reality is that could be overkill. And it's not because I, don't charge or whatever the case may be. I don't want to do too much, then I got to charge them, then it's too expensive. No, I could care less if I charge for initial diagnostic models. That is not going to make or break my practice. Getting a complete diagnosis will make or break my practice for the majority of patients. But when I'm starting out, I don't want to be doing a complete diagnosis for patients with bite records and mounted models and things like that on every patient, because the reality is probably 40 to 50% of them aren't ready to move forward with complete care yet. They need to be in your practice for a little while before they ask, hey, what's the next step here? And then you can take models. And so if you're struggling with this from a time standpoint, from a commitment standpoint, I encourage you to start to look not just necessarily at your interview, which is the number one place where most dentists make mistakes, but look at this exam process and say, how long does this actually take? Let's put myself in the patient's shoes. Am I overwhelmed at this point? Watch videos. You'll know by the end of the interview how long your exam can take before you lose this patient, because patients have an attention span just like we do. And so as you're going through the exam, if your exam is taking an hour, realize that the whole point of the exam is not necessarily for you to get all this information. It's to connect your patients to the disease and get them started in this co-creative process. So if your new patient process is taking an hour and a half, 2 hours, I've heard some people 2.5 hours for a new patient. Are you kidding me? No wonder you're struggling financially. You could have that same process, but why would you do that until they're committed to moving forward? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So if your interview is 30 minutes, your exam should be probably 30 minutes. It should probably take an hour. And then at that point, you should say, okay, this is what we do next. This is how I like to do it. It's up to you how you want to proceed, but usually they'll say, if you've done this right, it doesn't have to be long, but if you do this right, they say, yeah, I want to know a little bit more about what's going on, and I want to, start to put myself on a path to help getting me healthier. That's what you want to hear. They'll show up for the review at that point. They won't necessarily always show up if your exam process is 2.5 hours, because they'll say, that was the most thorough exam I've ever had. I will never step foot in that practice again, because I know that everything takes forever, and I'm not ready to do that. You have to be aware of your demographics. Now, when I say that, what I don't want you to feel is, well, my patients are too busy for this. My patients couldn't spend 2 appointments with me. They want one. They want to get it done. You're missing the point. What your patients really want is not to see you ever. And the best way to do that is to set them up on a path to health so they don't have to see you every 6 months. They don't have to see you when things are breaking down. And you can frame it that way with your patients and say, and I've said this before, listen, I know there's a downside to the way that I do things. It's that you have to see me a little bit more up front. But if you're patient and you get involved in this process, I can guarantee you that over the lifetime that you're a patient in this practice, you will see me less and less because you'll be getting healthier and healthier. And so if we can come to that agreement, then we can keep moving forward. You see how that dynamic changes a little bit? I encourage you to start to look at your actual comprehensive exam structure and process and how much you're putting into that, and then start to say, is this actually effective? Is this working the way that I want it to? And if it isn't, I can guarantee you, you're probably going too long. You're probably too much in a diagnostician mode and not enough in a co-creative mode. And you'll lose patients every time doing that. So as always, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you got value out of this episode or any of the previous episodes, please leave me a review or rating. That would be greatly appreciated. And if you're interested in learning more about how I help dentists, there is a direct link to set up a free strategy session with me where we kind of see where your practice is at, what you need help with. And if I can help you with anything, then I'll let you know at that appointment and, kind of tell you a little bit more about how I help clients. So as always, take care. Have a great week, and I'll see you at the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode on Dental Practice Freedom Radio with Dr. Steve Schlitz. We'll see you on the next episode.